So, hello guys, a very good morning. So, today we are going to read chapter 15, The Concise Laws of Human Nature. And chapter 15 is about make them want to follow you. The law of fickleness. Although styles of leadership change with times, and one constant remains, people are always ambivalent about those in power. They want to be led but also to feel free. They want to be protected and enjoy prosperity without making sacrifices. They both worship the king and want to kill him. When you are the leader of a group, people are continually prepared to turn on you the moment you seem weak or experience a setback. Do not succumb to the prejudices of the times, imagining that what you need to do to gain their loyalty is to be seem to be their equal or their friend. People will doubt your strength, become suspicious of your motives, and respond with hidden contempt. Authority is the delicate art of creating the appearance of power, legitimacy, and fairness while getting people to identify with you as a leader who is in their service. If you want to lead, you must master this art from early on in your life. Once you have gained people's trust, they will stand by you as their leader, no matter how bad the circumstances are. Hmm. Authority. But there is a shorter way to nobler goal, the obedience of the will. When the interests of mankind are at stake, they will obey with joy the man whom they believe to be wiser than themselves. You may prove this on all sides. You may see how the sick man will beg the doctor to tell him what he ought to do, how a whole ship's company will listen to the pilot. Xenophon. Who is Xenophon? Keys to human nature. We humans like to believe that emotions we experience are simple and pure. We love certain people and hate others. We respect and admire this individual and have nothing but disdain for another. The truth is that this is almost never the case. It is a fundamental fact of human nature that our emotions are almost always ambivalent, rarely pure and simple. Yeah, this is true. We can feel love and hostility at the same time, or admiration and envy. Nowhere is this fundamental aspect of human nature more evident than in our relationship toward leaders. This ambivalence toward leaders operates in the following way. On the one hand, we intuitively recognize the need for leaders in any group. People have their narrow agendas and competing interests. Without leader who stand above these competing interests and who see the larger picture, the group would be in trouble. Therefore, we crave leadership and unconsciously feel disoriented, even hysterical, without someone fulfilling this role. On the other hand, we also tend to fear and even despise those who are above us. This essential ambivalence tips toward the negative when leaders show signs of abuse, intensity, insensitivity, or incompetence. No matter how powerful the leaders, no matter how much we might admire them, below the surface sits this ambivalence and it makes people's loyalties notoriously fickle and volatile. Those in power till will tend to notice only the smiles of their employees and the applause will they receive at meetings, and mistake they will mistake such support reality. They do not realize that people almost always show such deference to those above them because their personal fate is in the hands of such leaders and they cannot afford to show their true feelings. And so, leaders are rarely aware of the underlying ambivalence that is there even when things are going well. If leaders make some mistakes or if their power seems shaky, suddenly they will see the mistrust and loss of respect that had been invisibly building up. as the members of the group or the public turn on them with an intensity that is surprising and shocking. Look at the news to see how quickly leaders in any field can lose support and respect, and how quickly they are judged by their latest success or failure. To the ancient Romans, those who had founded their republic possessed tremendous wisdom. Their ancestors had demonstrated this wisdom by how strong and long lasting were the institutions they had established, and how they had transformed their provincial town into the preeminent power in the known world, to the extent that Roman senators and leaders returned to this basic wisdom and embodied the ideals of founders. They had authority, an argumented presence, and increased prestige and credibility. Such leaders did not have to resort to speeches or to force. Roman citizens willingly followed their lead and accepted their ideas or advice. Their every word and deed seemed to carry extra weight. This gave them greater leeway in making hard decisions. They were not judged merely by their latest success. Having leaders who executed authority was a way to get things done and maintain a degree of unity, and it required that such leaders embody the highest of ideals, ones that transcended the pettiness of daily political life. This Roman model, which represents an adherence to a higher purpose, remains the essential ingredient for all true forms of authority, and this is how we must operate if we wish to establish such authority in the world today. First and foremost, we must understand the fundamental task of any leader to provide a far reaching vision, to see the global picture, to work for the greater good of the group and maintain its unity. Focusing on the future and the larger picture should consume much of our thinking. At the same time, however, we must see leadership as a dynamic relationship we have with those being led. We need to attune ourselves to the shifting moods of the members of the group. We must never assume we have their support. Our empathy must be visceral. We can feel when members are losing respect for us. As part of the dynamic, we need to realize that when we show our respect and trust toward those below us, such feelings will flow back to us. When leaders fail to establish these twin pillars of authority, vision, and empathy, what often happens is the following. Those in the group feel the disconnect and distance between them and leadership. They know that deep down they were viewed as replaceable pawns. And so, in subtle ways, they begin to feel resentful and to lose respect. They listen less attentively to what such leaders say. They spend more hours in the day thinking of their own interest and future. They join or form factions. They work at half or three-quarter speed. On the other hand, if we intuitively or consciously follow the path of the they listen less attentively to what such leaders say. They spend more hours in the day thinking of their own interest and future. They join or form factions. They work at half or three-quarter speed. On the other hand, if we intuitively or consciously follow the path of establishing authority as described above, we have a much different effect on the group dynamic. The ambivalence of the members or the public does not go away. That would violate human nature, but it becomes manageable. People will still waver and have moments of doubt or envy, but they will more quickly forgive us or for any mistakes and move past their suspicions. They have established enough trust for that to happen. It is always within our capacity to reach this ideal, and if the members lose respect and trust in us, we must see this as our fault. Your task as a student of human nature is threefold. Okay. First, you must make yourself a consummate observer of the phenomenon of authority, using as a measuring device the degree of influence people wield without the use of force or motivational speeches. Okay, what was it? Authority. Phenomenon of authority. Without using without the use of force or motivational speech. Okay. You begin this process by looking at your own family and gauging which parent, if any, exercised greater authority over you and your siblings. You look at the teachers and mentors in your life, some of whom distinguished themselves by the powerful effect they had on you. Their words and the example they set still reverberate in your mind. You observe your own bosses in action, looking at their effect not only on you and other individuals but also on the group as a whole. Lastly, you look at the various leaders in the news. In all these cases, you want to determine the source of their authority or lack of it. Second, okay, one second. Here it is lastly, you look at the various leaders in the news. In all these cases, you want to determine the source of their authority or lack of it. Okay, then where is the second and third? Okay. Second, you want to develop some of your habits and strategies that will serve you well in projecting authority. As part of this process, you need to reflect on the effect you have on people. Are you constantly arguing, trying to impose your will, finding much more resistance than you expect to your ideas and projects? If you are just starting out, sometimes this cannot be helped. People generally don't respect the ideas of those lower down in the hierarchy, but sometimes it could stem from your own actions as you violate many of the principles described above. Do not take people's smiles and expressions of assent for reality. In general, you want to heighten your sensitivity to others, looking in particular at those moments when you can feel people's disrespect and your authority on the wane. This is second, and now this is third one. Third and most important, you must not fall for the counterproductive prejudices of the times we live in which the very concept of authority is often misunderstood and despised. Today we confuse authority with leaders in general, and since so many of them in the world seem more interested in preserving more their power and enriching themselves, naturally we have doubts about the very concept itself. We also live in the fiercely democratic times. Why should we ever have to follow a person of authority and assume such an inferior role? We might ask ourselves, as students of human nature, we must recognize the myriad dangers of our prejudice against authority figures. To acknowledge people of authority in the world is not an admission of our own inferiority, but rather than acceptance of human nature and the need for such figures. People of authority should not be seen as self-serving or tyrannical. In fact, those are the qualities that diminish their authority. They are not relics of the past, but people who fulfill a necessary function and whose style adapts with the times. Authority can be an eminently democratic phenomenon. Strategies for establishing authority. Remember that the essence of authority is that people willingly follow your lead. They choose to adhere to your words and advice. They choose to adhere your words and advice. They want your wisdom. Certainly at times you may have to use force, rewards and punishments and inspiring speeches. It is only a matter of degree. The less your need of such devices, the greater your authority. And so you must think of continually striving to engage people's willpower and overcome their natural resistance and ambivalence. That is what the following strategies are designed to do. Put them all into practice. Find your authority style, authenticity. Eh? Find your authority style, authenticity. The authority you establish must emerge naturally from your character, from the particular strengths you possess. Think of certain archetypes of authority, one of the suits you best. A notable archetype is the deliverer, such as Moses or Martin Luther King Jr., an individual determined to deliver people from evil. Another archetype would be the founder. These are the ones who establish a new order in politics or business. They generally have a keen sense of trends and a great aversion of the status quo. Related to this archetype would be the visionary artist such as Pablo Picasso or the jazz artist Coltrane, John Coltrane or the film director David Lynch. These artists learned the conventions in their field and then turned them upside down. Oh my god. These artists learned the conventions in their field and then turned the upside down. Other archetypes include the truth seeker, people who have no tolerance for lies and politicking. The quiet pragmatist, they want nothing more than to fix things that are broken and have infinite patience. The healer, they have a knack for finding what will fulfill and unify people. The teacher, they have a way of getting people to initiate action and learn from their mistakes. You must identify which one of these archetypes or any others that are noticeable in culture. Okay, so basically, if I want to build the authority in among people, then I have to identify which one of these I am. Am I a pragmatist? Or sorry, am I a truth seeker or then quit pragmatist? This is number 2, and then the healer. This is number 3, and this is teacher. Okay, so let me tell you, they have a knack of finding what will fulfill. Okay, broken things. Okay, so number 1, I am a quietly pragmatist. I'm a pragmatist. You know why? I am truth seeker also. I want to know the truth. Okay, I don't want to lie. I want to fix the things, but not that much. I am a healer also. Okay, they have a knack for finding what will fulfill and unify people. No, 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 no. I try to do it, but since I don't have time that much, so I don't do it. Okay, by bringing out a style that is natural to you. Okay, the truth seeking is natural for me. Other things I have to take action. Okay, natural to you. You give the impression that is something beyond you, as if your sense of justice or nose for trends came from your DNA or were a gift from the gods. Wow. Focus outwardly, the attitude. We humans are self absorbed by nature and spend most of our time focusing inwardly on our emotions, on our wounds, on our fantasies. Yeah, this is true. You want to develop the habit of reserving this as much as possible. You do this in 3 ways. First, you hone your listening skills, absorbing yourself in the words and non-verbal cues of others. You do not take people's smiles and approving looks for reality, but rather sense the underlying tension or fascination. Second, this is second. Okay, you dedicate yourself to earning people's respect. You earn their respect by respecting their individual needs and by proving that you are working for the greater good. Third, you consider being a leader a tremendous responsibility, the welfare of the group hanging on your every decision. You feel a deep and visceral connection to the group, seeing your fate and there as deeply intertwined. If you exude this attitude, the people will feel it and it will open them up to your influence. You feel a deep and visceral connection to the group, seeing your fate and theirs as deeply intertwined. If you execute this attitude, people will feel it and it will open them to your influence. Okay. Where is the first one? Okay, this is the first one. Cultivate the third eye, the vision. Most people Most people are locked in the moment. They are prone to overreacting and panicking, to seeing only a narrow part of the reality facing the group. Those who maintain their presence of mind and elevate their perspective above the movement tap into the visionary powers of the human mind and cultivate that hard eye for unseen forces and trends. They stand out from the group, fulfill the true function of leadership, and create the aura of authority by seeming to possess the godlike ability to read the future. And this is a power that can be practiced and developed and applied to any new situation. As early in life as possible, you train yourself to disconnect from the emotions ruling the group. You force yourself to raise your vision, to imagine the larger picture. You entertain the perspective of the enemy, you listen to the ideas of outsiders, you open your mind to various possibilities. In this way, you gain a feel for the gestalt or overall shape of the situation. You game out the possible trends, how things might play out in the future, and in particular how things could go wrong. You have infinite patience for this exercise. The more deeply you go into it, the more you can acquire the power to discern the future in some form. Lead from the front, the tone. As the leader, you must be seen working as hard as or even harder than everyone else. This sets the proper tone. The members will feel compelled to raise themselves up to your level to gain your approval. They will internalize your values and subtly imitate you. It is important that you set this tone from the beginning. First impressions are critical. If you try later on to show you want to lead from the front, it will look forced and lack credibility. Equally important it is to show some initial toughness. If people get the impression early on that they can maneuver you, you will do the you will do so mercilessly. Begin this early on in your career by developing the highest possible standards for your own work and by training yourself to be constantly aware of how your manner and tone affect people in the subtlest of ways. So work for yourself while you are young. Stay conflicting emotions. The aura. Most people are too predictable. To mix well in social situations, they assume a persona that is consistent, jovial, pleasing, bold, sensitive. They try to hide other qualities that they are afraid to show. As the leader, you want to be more mysterious to establish a presence that fascinates people. By sending mixed signals, by showing qualities that are ever so slightly contrary, you cause people to pause in their instant categorizations and to think about who you really are. The more they think about you, the larger and more authoritative your presence. Related to this, you must learn to balance presence and absence. If you are too present and familiar, always available and visible, you seem too banal. Banal means okay, shallow or not so important. You give people no room to idealize you, but if you are too aloof, people cannot identify with you. In general, it is best to learn slightly more in the direction of absence so that when you do appear before the group, you generate excitement and drama. Never appear to take, always to give. The taboo. Taking something from people they have assumed they possessed, money, rights, or privileges, time that is their own, creates a basic insecurity and will call into question your authority and all the credit you have amassed. You make the members of the group feel uncertain about the future in a most visceral manner. Even the hint of this will harm your reputation if sacrifices are necessary. You are the first to make them, and they are not simply symbolic. Try to frame any loss of resources or privileges as temporary and make it clear how quickly you will restore them. Related to this, you must avoid over mm, promising to people. In the moment, it might feel good to let them hear of the great things you will do for them. Huh? In the moment, it might feel good to let them hear of the great things you will do for them. Okay, but people generally have an acute memory for promises, and if you fail to deliver, it will stick in their mind, even if you try to blame others in circumstances. If this happens a second time, your authority begins to sharply erode. Not giving what you promised to deliver will feel like something you have taken away. Everyone can talk a good game and promise, and so you seem like just anyone else we encounter, and the disappointment can be profound. Reju- Rejuvenate your authority. Adaptability. Your authority will grow with each action that inspires trust and respect. But as you get older, the authority you established can become rigid and stodgy. You become you become the father figure who starts to seem oppressive by how long he has monopolized power, no matter how deeply people admired him in the past. The new generation inevitably emerges that is immune to your charm, to the aura you have created. The first step is in avoiding this danger is to maintain sensitivity, noting the moods behind people's words, gauging the effect you have on newcomers and young people. Losing that empathy should be your greatest fear, as you will begin to cocoon yourself in your great reputation. The second step is to look for new markets and audience to appeal to, which will force you to adapt without making a fool of yourself by attempting to appeal to a younger crowd that you cannot really understand. Try to alter your style somewhat with the passing years. Such flexibility in those who are in similar who are in similar in such flexibility in those who are in their 50s and beyond will give you a touch of the divine and immortal. Your spirit remains alive and open, and your authority is renewed. The inner authority. We all have a higher and a lower self. At certain moments in life, we can definitely feel one part of the other as the stronger. When we accomplish things, when we finish what we start, we can sense the outlines of this higher self. Yes, but equally we know all too well the stirrings of the lower self when we take everything personally and become petty, or when we want to escape reality through some addictive pleasures, or when we waste time, or when we feel confused and unmotivated. Ah, so these are the things that cause you lower self, and these are the things that cause you higher self. When you start something and you finish it, when we finish what we start, we can sense the outlines of this higher self. Okay, and to feel the lower self, you can do this. What you can do, you can take everything personally, become petty, when we want to escape reality through some addictive pleasures, or when we waste time, or when we feel confused and unmotivated. This is the lower self. Although we most often float between these two sides, if we look at ourselves closely, we have to admit that that the lower half is the stronger one. It often takes great effort and awareness to tame this lower half and bring out the other higher side. It is not our first impulse. The key to making the struggle between the two sides more even to perhaps tip to the scales toward the higher is to cultivate what we shall call the inner authority. It serves as the voice, the conscience of our higher self. Think of this voice as dictating a code of behavior, and every day we must make ourselves listen to it. It tells us the following: You have a responsibility to contribute to the culture and times you live in. Right now, you are living off the fruits of millions of people in the past who have made your life incomparably easier through their struggles and inventions. Right? Yeah, I agree with it. It is so easy to take this all for granted and to imagine that it all just came about naturally and that you are entitled to have all of these powers. That is the view of spoiled children, and you must see any signs of such an attitude within you as shameful. You are here not merely to gratify your impulses and consume what others have made, but make and contribute as well to serve a higher purpose. To serve this higher purpose, you must cultivate what is unique about you. Stop listening so much to the words and opinions of others, telling you who you are and what you should like and dislike. Judge things and people for yourself. Work every day on improving those skills that mesh with your unique spirit and purpose. Add to the needed diversity of culture by creating something that reflects your uniqueness. In a world full of endless distractions, you must focus and prioritize. Certain activities are a wasteful of time. Certain people of a low nature will drag you down, and you must avoid them. Keep your eye on your long and short term goals, and remain concentrated and alert. Allow yourself the luxury of exploring and wandering creativity, but always with an underlying purpose. You must adhere to the highest standards in your work. You strive for excellence to make something that will resonate with the public and last. To maintain such standards, you must develop self-discipline and the proper work habits. You must pay great attention to the details in your work and place a premium value on effort. The first thought or idea that comes to you is most often incomplete and inadequate. Think more thoroughly and deeply about your ideas. Some of which you must discard do not become attached to your initial ideas, but rather treat them roughly. Keep in mind that your life is short, that it could end any day. You must have a sense of urgency to make the most of this limited time. Hmm. You don't need deadlines or people telling you what to do and when to finish. Any motivation you need comes from within. You are complete and self reliant. The select man. The excellent man is urged by interior necessity to appeal from himself to some standard beyond himself, superior to himself, whose service he freely accepts. We distinguish the excellent man from the common man by saying that the former is one who makes great demands on himself, and the latter the one who makes no demands on himself, but contents himself with what he is and is delighted to with himself. Contrary for what is usually thought, it is the man of excellence who lives in essential servitude. Life has no savor for him unless he makes it consistent in service to something trans, trans, transcendental. Hence, he does not look upon the necessity of serving as an oppression. When by when by chance such necessity is standard, more difficult, more exigent, with which the queers himself. This is life lived as discipline, the noble life. Jose Ortega y Gasset. So yeah, that's it for today. We will see you in the next video, and in next video we will read the chapter 16, see the hostility behind the friendly facade. See ya.